Imagine waking up tomorrow and stepping outside your front door, maybe grabbing your morning coffee, letting your dog out into the backyard, or heading down to the lake for an early fishing trip. Now, imagine that the world you stepped into wasn't the one you know. Imagine that the skies above you were patrolled by creatures the size of Cessna planes, that the rivers cutting through the American heartland were home to crocodilians that made today's gators look like harmless lizards, that the forests, the same ones where families go hiking every weekend, were once stalked by a snake so massive it could crush a bison like a soda can. This isn't science fiction. This is Earth's actual history. Throughout the billions of years this planet has existed, it has been home to some of the most terrifying, awe-inspiring, and downright nightmare-inducing creatures that ever drew breath. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Most of them didn't disappear that long ago. Some of them vanished while our own ancestors were still walking around, still building fires, still figuring out how to survive. For this list, we're skipping the obvious heavy hitters: no T-Rex, no Spinosaurus, no creatures you already know from every museum gift shop in America. Instead, we're going deeper. We're pulling back the curtain on 10 monsters that most people have never heard of, creatures that were every bit as terrifying as anything Hollywood has ever put on screen, and in many cases, far worse. By the time you finish reading this, you're going to feel very, very grateful that you live in the 21st century. Let's count them down. Number 10. Gigantopithecus, the Bigfoot that actually existed. Every few years, somewhere deep in the forests of the Pacific Northwest, someone claims to have spotted Bigfoot, a massive, upright ape towering above the tree line, disappearing before anyone can get a clear photo. People laugh. Scientists roll their eyes. The story gets buried on page 7. But here's something that doesn't get nearly enough attention. A real-life giant ape did exist, and it was far more terrifying than any blurry photograph. Meet Gigantopithecus. This creature roamed the ancient forests and mountain ranges of Asia, specifically across regions that would eventually become parts of China, India, and Vietnam, during a time period known as the Pleistocene epoch. It was closely related to the modern orangutan, which, if you've ever seen one up close at a zoo, is already a powerfully built animal. Now take that animal, scale it up dramatically, and place it in a world where humans were barely getting started as a species. Gigantopithecus could stand up to 10 feet tall, roughly the height of a standard basketball hoop, plus a couple of feet on top of that. It weighed as much as 1,200 pounds. To put that in American terms, that's heavier than a full-grown Harley-Davidson motorcycle. That's bigger than any bear species walking the continent today. That's a living creature that would have made a grizzly bear look like a weekend camping companion. Now, here's the part that might surprise you. Gigantopithecus was a vegetarian. It spent its days munching on bamboo, fruits, and forest vegetation, much like a gorilla or orangutan today. It had no interest in hunting. It wasn't built to chase prey. In theory, it wasn't aggressive. But you know what else isn't naturally aggressive? A black bear. And yet every park ranger in America will tell you to back away slowly if you encounter one on the trail. An animal that size, with that kind of strength, operating on pure instinct? If you wandered into its territory, made the wrong move, got too close to whatever it was protecting, the outcome wouldn't have been pleasant. Scientists believe that even incidental contact, a swipe of annoyance, a shove to move you out of the way, could have been fatal. Gigantopithecus went extinct approximately 300,000 years ago. The leading theories? Early humans may have hunted them, either directly or by competing for the same food sources. Climate change also played a role, shrinking the dense forests this creature depended on. But for a stretch of time on this planet, an actual giant ape walked the earth. And we should probably be grateful it never made it to North America. Number 9. The 3-foot scorpion, nature's original nightmare. Most Americans have a healthy fear of scorpions. If you've ever lived in Arizona, Texas, or New Mexico, you know the drill. Shake out your boots before putting them on. Check under the toilet seat before sitting down. Keep an eye on the baseboards at night. The bark scorpion, the most venomous scorpion in the United States, is about 2 to 3 inches long. It sends thousands of people to emergency rooms every year, now. Imagine one that was 12 times that size, officially known as pulmonoscorpius. And yes, that name is as ominous as it sounds. This prehistoric scorpion could grow to nearly 3 feet in length. It walked the ancient landscapes of what is now North America and Europe during the Carboniferous period, a time roughly 340 million years ago when the oxygen levels in Earth's atmosphere were significantly higher than today, allowing invertebrates to reach sizes that would be physically impossible now. And Pulmonoscorpius wasn't alone. This is the part of the story where things get genuinely surreal, because during the Carboniferous period, giant arthropods weren't the exception. They were the rule. The skies above North America weren't patrolled by eagles or hawks. They were filled with dragonflies the size of modern-day seagulls, with wingspans stretching up to 28 inches. The forest floors weren't home to pill bugs and centipedes. They were crawling with millipede relatives that stretched nearly 10 feet from end to end. And if that wasn't enough, the undergrowth was alive with cockroaches roughly the size of a house cat. Let that image settle for a moment. You're walking through an ancient American forest. The air is thick and humid, denser with oxygen than anything you've ever breathed. Above you, something with a 2-foot wingspan banks and dives between the prehistoric ferns. At your feet, a millipede the length of a compact car slides between the roots of enormous trees. And then, from beneath a rock, something large, armored, with 8 legs and a curved tail loaded with venom, turns to look at you. Pulmonoscorpius was equipped with sharp, powerful claws and a venomous stinger. The exact potency of its venom is still debated among scientists, but given the sheer volume it would have injected with a single strike, far more than any modern scorpion, most researchers believe it would have been extraordinarily dangerous to any creature it chose to target. Sleep well tonight. Number 8. Purosaurus, the American crocodile, that ate everything. Most people in the American South have a deep, inherited respect for alligators. You don't swim in murky water after dark. You don't let small dogs near the water's edge. You give the big ones plenty of space. Florida alone has an estimated 1.3 million alligators, and every few years, one of them reminds the public exactly why that respect is warranted. But even the most experienced Florida wildlife officer staring down a 13-foot bull gator in the Everglades would have been completely, hopelessly out of their depth if they'd encountered Purosaurus. Purosaurus was a prehistoric crocodilian that lived in what is now South America approximately 8 million years ago, during a period called the Miocene epoch, when the continent looked vastly different from what it is today. And when we say this animal was large, we need to be precise about what large actually means here. The largest saltwater crocodile alive today, the undisputed heavyweight champion of modern reptiles, maxes out at around 20 feet and roughly 2,200 pounds. Purosaurus grew to more than 40 feet in length. It weighed an estimated 18,000 pounds, roughly the same as 3 full-size pickup trucks stacked on top of each other. It didn't just live near the water. It owned the water. Every river, every swamp, every flooded plain in its territory was its hunting ground. The ecosystem it occupied had no apex predator above it. Nothing. Purosaurus was the top of the food chain. Full stop. Its bite force has been estimated at around 69,000 newtons, roughly 7 times the bite force of a great white shark. It would have been fully capable of biting through bone as easily as you'd bite through a cracker. A human being, an early ancestor stumbling to the riverbank for a drink of water, wouldn't have even had time to register what was happening. Here's the detail that truly puts this animal in perspective. Purosaurus was large enough to prey on giant ground sloths. These were animals the size of modern elephants. Purosaurus ate them. If you ever find yourself complaining about the gators in the Everglades, just remember, it could have been so much worse. Number 7. Quetzalcoatlus, the flying monster that patrolled the American sky. There is a reason humans instinctively look up at the sky and feel something. Whether it's the sight of a hawk circling overhead or the shadow of a large bird passing over you on a hiking trail, something in our deep biological memory registers aerial threats. Scientists believe this instinct stretches back millions of years. If that's true, then our ancient ancestors had every reason in the world to be terrified of what was above them. Quetzalcoatlus is, without exaggeration, one of the most astonishing animals that has ever existed on this planet. And here's what makes it particularly relevant to American readers. Its fossils were first discovered in Texas, Big Bend National Park, to be specific, one of the most remote and dramatic landscapes in the lower 48 states. This creature didn't just fly over ancient lands far away. It flew over what is now American soil. The numbers associated with Quetzalcoatlus are almost impossible to process. Its wingspan has been estimated at between 36 and 50 feet, comparable to a small regional aircraft. Standing on the ground, it was approximately 18 feet tall, roughly the same height as a modern giraffe. It weighed an estimated 500 pounds, which, given its wingspan, made it one of the largest flying animals in the history of life on Earth. But here's the part that scientists find most fascinating and most disturbing. Quetzalcoatlus probably didn't hunt from the air the way we typically imagine large flying predators hunting. It didn't dive from great heights to snatch fish from the ocean the way a pelican or an osprey does today. Instead, researchers believe it was primarily a ground hunter. It would fold its enormous wings and walk on all 4 limbs across open plains and ancient floodplains, using its long, spear-like beak to snatch prey from the ground. What kind of prey? Scientists believe Quetzalcoatlus could swallow animals the size of a large dog whole. Some researchers have speculated, cautiously, that it may have been capable of taking prey approaching human size, not necessarily as a primary target, but as an opportunistic one. Think about that image. You're a small early mammal going about your business on the open plains of what will one day become Texas. You hear something. You look up. And there, descending toward you on wings wider than a school bus, is the largest flying creature that has ever lived. Quetzalcoatlus went extinct 66 million years ago, along with the non-avian dinosaurs at the end of the Cretaceous period. Its fossils, sitting today in museum collections across the country, are a reminder that the American sky was once a very, very different place. Number 6. Megalodon. The ocean belongs to us now. It didn't always. Every summer, as millions of Americans head to the beaches of the Atlantic and Pacific coasts, there are the inevitable megalodon conversations. Someone sees the movie. Someone reads an article. Someone asks, half-jokingly, "What if it's still out there?" It isn't, almost certainly. But the reason scientists are so careful about saying almost certainly rather than definitely is itself a testament to just how extraordinary this animal was. Megalodon, whose full scientific name, Otodus megalodon, translates loosely to giant tooth, is the largest shark species ever documented in the fossil record. And when scientists say largest shark, they don't mean in the way that a great white is larger than a hammerhead. They mean in a way that genuinely strains comprehension. A great white shark, the one you picture when someone says the word shark, the one that stars in every documentary and inspired Steven Spielberg's most famous film, can grow up to 20 feet long and weigh upwards of 4,000 pounds. Great whites have been recorded biting through the hulls of small research vessels. They are, by any reasonable measure, apex predators of the highest order. Megalodon made great whites look like goldfish. Conservative estimates place Megalodon at 50 to 60 feet in length. Some researchers believe particularly large individuals may have exceeded 65 feet. Weight estimates range from 50 to 100 tons, meaning the largest megalodons were heavier than the largest dinosaurs that ever lived on land. Its jaws, when fully opened, could reach a vertical span of roughly 7 feet, wide enough to swallow a compact car. Here's the statistic that really ought to unsettle any American beachgoer. Megalodon didn't go extinct until approximately 2.6 million years ago. In geological terms, that's yesterday. That means Megalodon shared the oceans with animals that are still around today. Giant sea turtles, dolphins, porpoises, humpback whales. Fossil evidence suggests it actively hunted large whales, striking them from below with enough force to shatter bone. The Atlantic Ocean off the coast of the Carolinas, the Pacific off California, the Gulf of Mexico. These were Megalodon's hunting grounds, and if you want one more reason to feel complicated about your next beach vacation, consider this. The ocean remains to this day more than 80% unexplored. We don't know everything that's down there. We're just relatively confident the big one is gone. Number 5. Gorgonops, the predator that ruled before the dinosaurs showed up. Here's a piece of prehistoric history that doesn't get nearly enough attention in American classrooms. Dinosaurs weren't the first terrifying apex predators to rule this planet. Not even close. Long before the first T-Rex took a step, long before the first velociraptor opened its jaws, there was a creature called Gorgonops. It lived approximately 260 million years ago, during the late Permian period, a time so ancient that it predates the dinosaurs by roughly 30 million years, and in its day, Gorgonops was the undisputed ruler of the food chain. Gorgonops was a therapsid, part of a lineage of animals sometimes called mammal-like reptiles, which were neither fully reptile nor fully mammal, but something in between. They were, in many ways, the evolutionary bridge between the ancient reptile world and the warm-blooded mammals that would eventually come to dominate the planet. And Gorgonops was the apex of that entire group. At somewhere between 6 and 10 feet in length, Gorgonops wasn't the largest predator you'll encounter on this list. But size, as any experienced hunter will tell you, isn't everything. What made Gorgonops terrifying was its speed and its teeth. This animal was fast, far faster than anything else in its ecosystem at the time. It was built for explosive pursuit, with long, powerful legs positioned beneath its body in a way that was unusual for reptile-like creatures of its era. Most of its contemporaries moved with their legs splayed out to the sides like a modern lizard. Gorgonops moved more like a lion, upright, efficient, built to close distance in a hurry. And then there were the canine teeth. Gorgonops had the most prominent canines of any animal of its era, massive, saber-like structures so long they actually extended past the lower jaw, protruding visibly even when its mouth was closed. These weren't just for show. They were precision killing instruments, designed to punch through hide and reach vital organs with a single well-placed strike. Gorgonops rose to the top of the food chain and stayed there, until the Permian-Triassic extinction event, the largest mass extinction in Earth's history, wiped out an estimated 96% of all marine species and 70% of all land species. In that catastrophe, Gorgonops disappeared. The age of the dinosaurs had begun. But for a long time before that, Gorgonops owned the planet. Number 4. Terror birds. 6 feet of feathers, fury, and pure American nightmare. When most people think about prehistoric North America, they think about mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and giant ground sloths. They don't think about birds. That's a mistake. For a significant stretch of geological time, spanning from roughly 62 million years ago through about 2 million years ago, large flightless birds were among the most dominant predators in both South America and significant portions of what is now the continental United States. Scientists call them forest wrasses. Everyone else calls them terror birds, which is considerably more accurate. Terror birds couldn't fly, but they didn't need to. The largest species, Titanus walleri, whose fossils have been found in Texas and Florida, making it uniquely American in the most unsettling way, stood up to 10 feet tall and weighed close to half a ton. It couldn't take to the skies, but it could run. Biomechanical studies suggest the largest terror birds could reach speeds comparable to a modern racehorse, somewhere in the range of 30 to 40 miles per hour. On open ground, there was essentially nothing that could outrun one. Their primary weapon was their head, literally. A terror bird's skull could grow to over 3 feet in length, ending in a massive, hook-tipped beak that functioned like a battle axe. Researchers believe these animals used a specific hunting strategy. They would chase down prey, grab it with their beak, and repeatedly slam it against the ground with tremendous force, using their skull as a weapon to stun or kill before swallowing. And what did they swallow? Based on fossil evidence, terror birds preyed on horses, early camels, and other large mammals that roamed the North American plains. Some researchers believe that if modern humans had been present during the peak of terror bird dominance, we would have absolutely been on the menu. What finally ended the terror bird's reign? The emergence of highly efficient mammalian predators, big cats, wolves, and their relatives moving into the same ecosystems. Competition, not some catastrophic event, brought the terror birds down. The better predator won. Titanus walleri went extinct approximately 2 million years ago. Its fossils sit today in Texas and Florida museums, quiet reminders that the American landscape was once patrolled by something that makes a cassowary look like a backyard chicken. Number 3. Titanoboa, 60 feet of South American nightmare, coming to a forest. Near you, there is a specific, deeply wired human fear of large snakes. Psychologists have documented it extensively. Even people who grew up in urban environments who have never encountered a snake in the wild show measurable stress responses when presented with images of large constrictors. The fear is, researchers believe, ancestral, baked into us by millions of years of evolution in environments where large snakes were genuine threats. If that's the case, then Titanoboa is the reason our ancestors were afraid. Titanoboa cerrejonensis, discovered through fossil evidence found in the Cerrejón coal mine in northern Colombia and studied extensively by researchers at the Smithsonian Institution and the University of Florida, two of America's most respected scientific institutions, was the largest snake that has ever existed on this planet. Its numbers are genuinely difficult to process. Titanoboa grew to lengths of approximately 50 feet. In American terms, longer than a school bus. Its body, at its widest point, would have been roughly the same diameter as a standard oil drum, about 36 inches. It weighed well over 2,500 pounds, making it heavier than most pickup trucks. It lived approximately 58 to 60 million years ago in the warm, humid tropical forests of what is now South America, during a period when global temperatures were significantly warmer than today. Like its modern relatives, the boa constrictor and the anaconda, Titanoboa was a constrictor. It didn't use venom. It didn't need to. It killed by wrapping its body around prey and squeezing, applying pressure so extreme that it prevented the cardiovascular system from functioning, causing the prey to lose consciousness and die within seconds. Here's a comparison that might help put the power of Titanoboa in perspective. A large modern anaconda, the heaviest snake alive today, has been measured at around 550 pounds and 17 feet. Researchers who have studied anaconda constriction pressure estimate that a large anaconda could generate roughly 90 pounds of force per square inch. Scaling those numbers up to Titanoboa's dimensions suggests constriction forces that would be essentially incomprehensible, more than sufficient to crush bone, to collapse a rib cage, to compress a fully grown human being into something unrecognizable. To put it more plainly, Titanoboa would have eaten you the way a modern boa constrictor eats a guinea pig. The proportions are nearly identical. The discovery of Titanoboa fossils in 2009 caused a genuine sensation in the American scientific community, partly because of what it revealed about ancient climate conditions, and partly because people simply could not stop thinking about a snake the size of a school bus. We're very glad it's extinct. Number 2. Arthropleura, the millipede. Your backyard nightmares are based on quick question. Have you ever seen a centipede crawling across your bathroom floor at 2 a.m. and felt a spike of pure, irrational terror? Have you ever spotted a millipede in your garden and experienced a visceral, full-body, absolutely not response? Have you ever read about the giant Amazonian centipede, which can grow to 12 inches and has been documented killing small animals, and felt deeply, personally grateful that you live in the continental United States? Then you are not going to enjoy learning about Arthropleura. Arthropleura was a prehistoric arthropod, a relative of modern millipedes and centipedes, that lived during the Carboniferous and early Permian periods, roughly 300 to 345 million years ago. Its fossils have been found across what is now North America and Europe, meaning this creature was, in a very real sense, an ancient American resident. It was approximately 10 feet long. Let that land for a moment. 10 feet, the length of a mid-size SUV with dozens of legs, moving across the forest floor of ancient Pennsylvania, ancient Virginia, ancient Appalachia, crawling through the roots of enormous prehistoric trees, pushing through the undergrowth of swamps and forests that once covered the eastern United States. What makes Arthropleura particularly fascinating, and particularly unsettling, is that scientists are still debating its diet. Some fossil evidence suggests it may have been a herbivore feeding on decaying plant matter and fungi. Other evidence suggests it may have been a predator. The honest answer is we don't fully know, but here's the thing. It doesn't really matter, because whether Arthropleura was a gentle giant quietly composting its way through the forest floor, or an active predator hunting in the ancient Appalachian undergrowth, the image of a 10-foot armored arthropod is equally unwelcome in either context. Arthropleura had essentially no predators. Nothing in its ecosystem was large enough or equipped to deal with something that size, that armored, that many-legged. It was, for a significant stretch of time, one of the most dominant land animals on the planet. It went extinct approximately 299 million years ago, likely as climate change reduced the dense, oxygen-rich forests it depended on. And somewhere in the deep evolutionary memory of every human who has ever flinched at a centipede, Arthropleura is the reason. Number 1. Mosasaurus, the apex predator that made the entire ocean. Its territory, we've covered giant apes, 3-foot scorpions, a crocodile the size of a city bus, a snake, bigger than a school bus, a bird that could run down a racehorse, a flying predator with the wingspan of an aircraft. But nothing on this list comes close to the sheer, overwhelming, systemic terror of Mosasaurus. Mosasaurus was a mosasaur, a group of large marine reptiles that dominated the world's oceans during the late Cretaceous period, between roughly 82 and 66 million years ago. They weren't dinosaurs, and they weren't fish. They were air-breathing marine reptiles, more closely related to modern monitor lizards and snakes than to any fish species. And Mosasaurus was the largest and most dominant of all of them. The numbers are staggering. Mosasaurus could reach lengths of 50 to 59 feet, comparable to a standard city transit bus. It weighed an estimated 30,000 pounds. Its skull alone was nearly 6 feet long, lined on both the upper and lower jaws with rows of large conical teeth designed not to slice but to grip, to clamp down on prey and prevent escape. Additionally, Mosasaurus had a second set of teeth on the roof of its mouth, allowing it to work prey backward toward its throat, similar to the feeding mechanism of modern snakes. To understand the dominance of Mosasaurus, you need to understand the ocean it inhabited. The late Cretaceous ocean covered enormous portions of what is now the continental United States. The Western Interior Seaway, a shallow inland sea that split North America in two, running from the Gulf of Mexico all the way to the Arctic Ocean, was Mosasaurus territory. Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado, South Dakota. These states were once seafloor, and in that seafloor swam Mosasaurus. Fossils of Mosasaurus have been found throughout the Great Plains states, in Kansas in particular, where the chalk beds of the Niobrara Formation have yielded some of the most complete mosasaur specimens ever discovered. American paleontologists have been studying these animals for over 150 years, and every new discovery reveals something more extraordinary. What did Mosasaurus eat? Everything. Ammonites, fish, sea turtles, plesiosaurs, sharks, and other mosasaurs. Fossil evidence shows Mosasaurus bite marks on the bones of virtually every other large animal that lived in the same ecosystem. It wasn't competing for the top spot in the food chain, it was the food chain. The closest living analog we have today is the killer whale, an animal that is itself widely considered one of the most formidable predators in the ocean. But a killer whale maxes out at around 26 feet and 12,000 pounds. Mosasaurus was twice the length and nearly 3 times the weight, with armor-like scaled skin and a bite that could shatter reinforced bone. Scientists have found evidence that Mosasaurus was capable of a unique hunting behavior, ambush predation from depth. Like a modern great white shark, it would approach prey from below, driving upward with devastating speed and striking before the prey could react. At 30,000 pounds, moving at full speed from depth, the impact alone would have been catastrophic. Mosasaurus went extinct 66 million years ago, in the same extinction event that claimed Quetzalcoatlus and the non-avian dinosaurs. The asteroid impact that ended the Cretaceous period, the one that struck what is now the Yucatan Peninsula close enough to American shores to be practically a neighbor, brought down every apex predator on this list simultaneously. And in the silence that followed, a small group of warm-blooded mammals climbed out of their burrows, looked around at a suddenly emptied world, and began the long process of inheriting the earth. Those mammals eventually became us. So the next time you're standing on an American beach watching the waves come in, or hiking through the Appalachian forest, listening to the trees, or looking up at the Texas sky on a clear day, watching the hawks ride the thermals, take a moment to appreciate just how lucky you are to be standing here in this moment, in this century. Because this planet, it didn't always belong to us, and for a very long time it belonged to them.